All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curran and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome to another episode of A Swift Kick in the Ass. As I sit here waiting for my guest to arrive, wanted to give a brief introduction because this lady is very accomplished. Now, few things fascinate us more than death. It also frightens us quite a bit, I think. And what happens after we die, it remains shrouded in mystery. Some people believe they know. You know, we have belief systems and such, but no one really knows. So tonight, I bring Dr. Jennifer Levin to the show. Dr. Levin is a nationally recognized grief and trauma expert specializing in sudden or unexpected death. Dr. Levin is one of the few experts in the United States, credentialed in the United States as a fellow in thanatology. That is the top distinction in the field of death, dying, and bereavement. She also has a private therapy practice, Therapy Heals Incorporated. She's also the founder of Traumatic Grief Solutions, a consultancy that supports companies, nonprofits, schools, etc., through proactive grief planning and crisis response. She also has a podcast called Untethered, Healing the Pain from a Sudden Death. As well as she's the author of the Traumatic Loss Workbook, which is a powerful tool for navigating the grief caused by sudden or unexpected death. So it's going to be a very, very interesting show tonight. I didn't want to give a 5-minute introduction and waste Dr. Levin's time. I've got a lot of questions for her. And I just really want to hear what she has to say. All right. Welcome, everyone, to A Swift Kick in the Ass. I have a really interesting episode for you this evening or this morning or whenever you're listening or watching this show. On our show, I have Dr. Jennifer Levin, who's a expert. I want to make sure I get all this right because this is one busy lady. She's a nationally recognized grief and trauma expert specializing in sudden or unexpected death. She's one of the few experts in the United States who is credentialed as a fellow in thanatology. And I will admit that I had to look up the meaning of that word. And what it is, it's the field of death, dying, and bereavement. And the fellow distinction is the top distinction in that field. So you are here with one of the top experts in this field. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of people are dealing with sudden and traumatic death, unfortunately. So I'm really hopeful that this episode will help a lot of people because I know a lot of people personally who are dealing with this. Dr. Levin also has a private practice, Therapy Heals Incorporated, as well as she's the founder of Traumatic Grief Solutions, which is a consultancy supporting companies, nonprofits, and schools through proactive grief planning and crisis response. And I have a background in risk management and insurance, so I'm very interested too in knowing a little bit more about that aspect of your work. Dr. Levin has a podcast, Untethered, healing the pain from a sudden death. We can talk about that, as well as you're the author of the Traumatic Loss Workbook, which is, I guess, helps people develop a skill set that they need for navigating the grief that's caused by sudden death and unexpected death. So, again, I could go on talking forever, I think, about Dr. Levin's accomplishments and all of what she's up to, but welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
Since this has, such far-reaching impact, I mean, there's suicide, just regular everyday violence, domestic violence, medical crisis, accidents happen, overdoses happen, accidental or maybe on purpose. The fentanyl epidemic these days, it almost seems like murder because people know that this kills and they're continue to do this to others. But our support systems aren't really designed to manage this. So, where do you start, and how do you approach a death, I guess, when it's unexpected, it's traumatic. This could happen to, any one of us personally, but I know of people, of friends who have lost their children.
Yeah.
Through really, I think a few of them through the fentanyl epidemic. It was not intentional, I believe, but I also know people who have, been impacted by suicide, by accidents. My former co-host, the person who I started the show with, he died of brain cancer 5 years ago. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that to see, that wasn't necessarily it was unexpected because he was so young, but it wasn't instant.
Right. But it was probably fast.
But yeah, a couple of years. Yeah, a couple of years.
Okay.
It was, but nevertheless, had a great impact. It did shatter a lot of lives. My father had he lived a good long life, but he died of ALS, and within 2 years of diagnosis, he was gone. Now again, he lived a good long life. You expect to get sick when you get older. Some of life, death, we all have to face death one day. But these are the cases that, where do you draw the line? I mean, and how does that affect grief?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why don't I start off by telling you some things that makes a sudden and unexpected death so different from a death that may be natural or anticipated. And let me start by saying all death is hard. It doesn't matter, but all death, and when we lose somebody that we love greatly, it's just a very difficult experience, no matter what the circumstances may be. We also never know when the exact moment that a loved one is going to die, even if we do expect it. And for many of us, the loss of a loved one is a traumatic experience, no matter how it happens. And so a lot of these terms can even be subjective. And I talk about that in my workbook. But there are some things that are very specific to a sudden and an unexpected death. Number one, the inability to say goodbye, to say, goodbye or some last words, which you do have in cancer or ALS or
leaving it badly, maybe.
Yes. And a lot of times that final interaction is transactional. Can you pick up some milk from the store, or who's going to get the kids today? Or there's an argument, and that can be really difficult if that was the very last thing that you said to a loved one. And then something sudden happens, and that can make the grieving process very complex, especially if the relationship wasn't on a good terms. So there's that inability to say goodbye. I'm not really closure, because there really isn't a closure in something like this. Second is sometimes, not always, but these types of deaths could have been preventable. if it was an accident, an overdose, a suicide. Many
Hmm.
times it didn't need to happen. And if you, as a loved one, feel like you could have done something to prevent the death, when you're grieving, it is such a difficult process to think, if only we have the if I would have, could have, or should have. And this
Hmm.
again makes the grieving process very complex. If you're walking around carrying that guilt, regret, or blame,
I think you can carry that with really any type
any
of
type,
grief.
absolutely.
I carried some of that with my father. After spending a week with him in hospice, I was there
Yes,
when he died, but I was asleep
yeah,
when he died, and I
yeah,
kind of had some guilt about that because I
yes,
wasn't there holding his hand
and
when he passed.
absolutely.
So
So
I
you
get it.
can, yes, you can have those feelings no matter what, but they can be even more intensified when you
Yes.
have when something could have been prevented. When
Yeah.
if I had been there to stop them from taking their life, because that
Hmm.
could have been a prevented type
Yeah.
of,
That would.
or an accident if someone fell off a ladder because they were climbing it by themselves. That could have been
And
prevented.
they carry that
So,
weight with have to carry that weight with them.
yeah, yeah. The third thing that makes it very different, and you mentioned this when you were talking about it earlier, is oftentimes it's out of the natural life cycle. So we do expect our parents, we do expect our grandparents to die before us. And so when a parent buries a child, this can make a death very different and traumatic because we don't expect to be burying somebody in their early years, or a child, an infant, and that makes the grieving process very, very difficult and complicated as well. So the fourth way that it can be very difficult is that if it was we perceived our loved one suffered or was in pain or harm came
Mm.
to their body. So that complicates things. And then finally, oftentimes, we as loved ones could have been involved in some way. Maybe we had to provide CPR. Maybe we came home and found a loved one in a compromising manner,
Yeah.
or we're in a car accident and our loved one didn't survive, but we did. And so those types of things can cause a trauma response. And a trauma response
Hmm.
really occurs when we don't have the right coping mechanisms, or our coping mechanisms are completely overwhelmed and not able to deal with the situation at hand. And then we experience symptoms of trauma, which is what makes this a traumatic grief experience.
Yeah.
So,
So you've created a workbook to
yes,
help people kind of guide them through this process, I imagine.
yes, 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 through the whole continuum, because you said, where do you even start? Well,
Yeah.
sometimes I start with somebody the day of, and sometimes it's a year, 2 years later. This is not a type of death that you heal from or get better. It's something you learn to live with. But the good news is there are a lot of tools and coping mechanisms and ways in which you can learn how to manage the grief, how to experience joy again, and how to rebuild your life while
Mhm.
you are managing and living with the grief at the same time.
Now that's very individual, correct?
Mhm.
I mean, everyone is kind of on their own timeline and on their
Absolutely.
own agenda, I guess.
Absolutely.
Everyone
Very
is impacted differently.
yes.
Um, I keep going back in my mind about, you know, traumatic and unexpected to euthanasia. Um, I had to deal with that for the first time when my father was sick. In Florida, he he wanted to end his life. He had a terminal illness, and he was done. And we checked in the hospice, and he told the doctor that he would charter a private plane and go to a state where there were laws that would allow him to end his life legally. And I was supportive, but I thank God I didn't have to to do that, because I would really be in need of your workbook with that. If I would do it, because you do anything for family. But more recently, we had to put down our family dog, who
Mhm.
was just 15 years old. He was older. But as you were going through the kind of the different ways that grief can impact you, and the thoughts that we have as we process all of this and cope with death, I felt a lot of that just with going through that with my dog, which was
Yes.
I mean, I know it was the right thing to do, but it seemed like, honestly, we brought him into the office and we left without him, and I feel like we ambushed him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we didn't do that. He was surrounded by family. He he was in pain and with no help. But it's very traumatic. It's that in itself. It seems kind of silly to compare that to humans, but our animals are become like family to us, and I
Absolutely.
think a lot of our my listeners too have pets and animals and
Yeah.
people
I
that you
have
care
two
for.
that I have two that are like my children. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think this is something that we all deal with on one way or another. Um, and part of your work is to help people become resilient, I guess, build resilience or skills that enable resilience, um, to persevere and get and move and process what they went through and get through the grief. But how do you, when you're dealing with a company or a school, um, it takes it to a higher level, or it's more, it's not just an individual level. It's kind of raises it up, I think, from a population
Mhm.
perspective. But how do you plan? How do you bring that to a personal level and plan for your response to crisis or things that you might think that are going on in your life that you might have to prepare for? Maybe you have a son or a daughter who is a drug addict and is on a really bad path, and that that no matter what you're doing, they're on a bad path, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. So, I mean, you know, part of it is with living, but some of it I think is maybe protecting yourself or
Mhm.
building up the armor.
Yeah.
I know when my co-host died, I felt like so overwhelmed. It felt like the world was just falling in on me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, Tommy dying. It was other aspects of my life
Yeah.
that were impacted. Work was impacted. My marriage was impacted. Um, my health.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
grief impacts every part of our life. It impacts us physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. It's not just about sadness, it impacts the way we see the world, our relationships, uh, our career, every single part. And I think it's really important to, number one, not only acknowledge it, but then to make modifications and to be in an environment that allows you to make those modifications. And there's a book written by Pamela Blair and Brooke Noel called I Wasn't Ready to Say Goodbye.
mm,
And they talk about right after you've experienced the loss of somebody, especially in a difficult situation or a traumatic situation, you put yourself in an emotional ICU because that's what you need.
mm,
Everything has absolutely changed. And when you think about somebody or you see a TV show of what it's like to be in in the intensive care unit, and if you've never experienced that before, you're just there's a glass everywhere, there's monitors, you're being monitored 24/7, and all of your needs are being attended to. And that's what needs to happen.
mm.
You don't need to be in a sterile glass environment, but all of your needs need to be attended to. You need to be wrapped around by people that you feel cared for and supported and loved, and comforting foods and an environment, just until you feel safe again. Because, like you said, it felt like the world was crashing down upon you, because everything that made sense to you for a while didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. That's interesting because when I was preparing for the interview, I read about how you talked about safety, and I thought that's odd because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like safety was an issue for me. Like it wasn't a concern for me. My safety wasn't a concern. But as you explain it, it was safety. It was, I did have to, I felt very vulnerable, very exposed, and I felt like I had to surround myself and protect myself and build up my armor because life was going to continue to come at me, regardless. And I've retreated. I found meditation when Tommy died, because I had gone to a medical doctor, and I just don't really, I believe a medication has its purpose and need, but I really didn't want to go down that path just first.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to try to work it out myself, and that's what this show really, I think, encourages a lot of time too. Is the swift kick in the ass. It's not an act of violence. It's an act of caring, and
Right.
it's a motivation to push people forward and better their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a tough subject.
It is a tough subject. It's a very tough subject. And I'm so glad that to be a guest here and to be talking about it. And one of the reasons it is a tough subject is because we don't talk about it, because we perceive it's too difficult of a subject to talk about. And when we can talk about it and normalize and validate and
Hmm.
comfort one another when we are in this type of pain, it eases it. Then we know how to support one another when we are going through this difficult time in our lives. No one is going to escape the pain of grief and of loss. And sometimes what makes it even worse is when those in our life don't know how to show up for us and don't know how to
Mm.
comfort us. And so many times individuals will isolate because they feel like no one understands. And so they'll kind of close in, they'll
Hmm.
stay alone, they'll stay at home, they'll stay alone or withdraw from others. And that makes the grief so much worse. Grief is a universal experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That no, no, no. I find that so very interesting. I started thinking about my friends who recently lost their children. They lost a son. I think both of them lost sons. It was very quick, very sudden, not expected. Um, and I was going to ask what you say to when you hear news like that. I mean, what can you possibly say? You can't make it better. Um, my friend Tommy, who died when he was sick, and we're talking about all this, he says, some things you just have to accept, and you have to embrace the suck to
Yep,
get through it. It sucks no matter what, and that is the way it is. You have to accept that and move forward somehow. His widow actually, I think, said it really well. She says, you never really truly get over
no,
the death, but your life grows around. It grows around it. So it always is going to be a part of your life. Like my
absolutely.
friend Tommy, he'll always be a part of my life. And
Absolutely.
but my story continues, and
Yeah.
his unfortunately ended. Um, but then I was also thinking about my friend who lost his mother and got divorced. Not that maybe a year or so later, and I never really connected the two, but I think that the death, his grieving, made him realize that his wife was not there for him in a way that he needed, really needed. And it was proof to him that she just was not capable of that. And he decided to end the marriage.
Well, death helps us look at the world differently. It helps us realize life is short,
Yeah.
that we shouldn't be in circumstances, or sometimes it empowers us not to be in circumstances where we aren't happy. There's a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Oh,
Post-traumatic growth. I love that.
yes, yes. The term was coined by Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. And basically, the concept is after you've experienced a traumatic event, and it doesn't have to be a death, any type of traumatic event in your life,
Hmm.
you not only return to your baseline functioning, you actually get to a state where you are better off than you were before the traumatic event happened. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Somebody who experiences post traumatic growth after the death of their loved one would so much rather have their loved one back than
Right.
experience post traumatic growth. But it's been shown that post traumatic growth happens in one of five, or sometimes more than that, five key domains. Okay. And they are, and this is in my book, a heightened appreciation for life, deeper relationships with people, increased personal strength. I don't want to miss any,
Yeah, no.
enhanced
Appreciate
life
it.
possibilities, or an enriched spiritual or stronger belief system. And so, as a result of the traumatic event itself, you are
Yeah.
able to experience, like I said, a deeper or growth in one of those five areas. Now, just like not everybody who experiences something traumatic will experience post traumatic stress disorder,
Hmm.
not everybody is
Right.
going to experience post traumatic growth. I never say to a client, oh my goodness, wait till you hear about the ways that you're going to grow from this.
Okay.
Go running.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's often something I don't bring up at all until, somebody will say, you know, I've really changed, and I've changed in these positive ways. Somebody will say, I'm so much more empathetic now. I I'm a kinder person, or I spend more
Hmm.
time, my relationships have become so much deeper. I can connect with people more. And then I might say, well, actually, there's something called post, traumatic growth, or I might talk about it then. But yes, there are ways in which our whole life can change because of a traumatic event that we've experienced, including the death of a loved one.
It reminds me of, I guess I'm pretty famous about putting my foot in my mouth. So I probably talked about like a long time ago where the silver lining, in it. And after someone dies, is not the time to talk
You
about a
say, wait,
silver
yeah, wait till you
lining.
hear about the silver lining. No,
No, I mean, you know, it's hard for people to understand that it's going to be okay.
yes,
Um, and I think your suggestion of just saying, hey, just being there for people and just offering, like I know when my grandmother died and my friends, it wasn't what they did, it was the offer of assistance. What do you need? How can I help you? And that went so far. And with those friends, that group of friends, that's 40 years later now, and we're still friends, like brothers.
that's
So,
great.
it does matter how you treat other people.
Absolutely.
And even if you can't empathize and truly put yourself in their shoes because you've never been in that position, you can ask them questions about what they need and how they can help. And I'm sure it will be appreciated. And if they'll say no, if they don't.
Can I actually take that a little step further.
Sure. Please.
So oftentimes, when you are in this state where the world is caving in on you,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't know what you need. Or sometimes, and this comes from, working with so many people in this arena where they'll say, if I've done just hundreds and hundreds of groups, and we inevitably get on the topic of unhelpful things
Mm-hmm.
that people have said. And it's like, call me if you need anything. So
Mm.
instead of saying, and it sounds like what your friends did for you worked beautifully, and that's all that really matters. But one of the things I like to suggest is instead of saying, let me know what you need, is drop off a bag of groceries.
Mm.
Don't ask, just do it. If you see a lawn that needs to be mowed, go ahead. Obviously, the person.
Yeah.
You would never want to do
Yeah.
anything that would upset them. Or can I pick up the kids from school? Can I bring dinner over on Monday night? Because often
Okay.
so overwhelmed with everything
Just offering
going on,
specifics.
offer specific tasks. Can I come over on Tuesday night and just be with you? We don't have to talk about your grief, or maybe you would like to talk about your grief. But often a specific suggestion or a task
Okay.
can be so helpful. And again, this comes from at this point, thousands of people that I've worked with who say, oh, when my neighbor just came up and said, it's trash day, I'm going to take care of your trash for the next month. Is that okay? It was so great to
How
have
could you say no to that?
Yeah. Checked off
Yeah.
my list. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and as I think about my life and about the difficult times when people have brought over food, or like we moved into a house and someone brought a pie over, like a neighbor just introducing themselves. That was so nice. Even if the pie was terrible. I was
Terrible
just,
pie is better than no pie.
oh, absolutely. But that's good to know. Because I think a lot of people are going to come across others in their life that something bad has happened to, and
I'd love
this
to
might give
provide,
them some help in maybe thinking about what they would say.
yeah, I'd love to provide one other suggestion. And I don't know if you saw this at all when your friend and co-host died, was in the beginning, you're so surrounded by friends and family, but that
Mm.
dissipates pretty quickly. 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, but the grief doesn't. And so I always encourage people, friends, and family to pace themselves, even hold back a little bit if they, in the first couple of weeks, because that's when so many people will be surrounding a griever.
Mm-hmm.
3 months, 6 months, set it up, call weekly, set up a weekly date, do something. Somebody who's grieving, especially after, you've said you have friends who've just experienced the death of sons, they're going to be hurting for a very, very, very long time. And weekly check-ins that go on for a year or two will be so appreciated. Things that drop off after just a couple of months, of course, they're welcomed, but it's those
Yeah.
continual support that,
Can we talk about that a little bit, the
yeah,
longevity of all this?
yes, yes.
So putting my dog down was tough. And I loved Phineas, who was my buddy. He saw me through all three of our children. I mean, we got him when their children were very young, and then another one came along. So all of my children knew him. He was our family dog. And I cried, and I suffered a loss from that. But, it's still relatively fresh. It's about a month ago. But then I still catch myself, like just in the shower, think about him, and the waterfalls are happening. And it's happening too in other members of my family. But I know that with the death of a friend, of a human, I mean, it's even longer. I mean, there's a greater impact.
Yeah.
Could you maybe talk about what you see as being normal? And because I think that maybe people might think something's wrong with them because they have this emotional outburst, or like my friend just lost his mother. She had an accident. They found her unconscious, and so she was in a coma, and she never really came out of the
Oh, no.
coma. So he's grieving,
Absolutely.
and again, like my friend who had the post-traumatic growth, he I think it's just part of his character and part of his personality is to grow as a person. Other people don't deal with things as well. And like, I think generally speaking, it's maybe a good idea not to make decisions in that circumstance, to kind of hold off,
Mhm. Yeah.
let the emotions settle down. But you
Yeah.
should expect a wide range of emotions, right?
Absolutely. There is no timeline when it comes to grief. It's going to take what it's going to take. And if you think about it, if you experience the death of a child, a
Mm,
spouse, a sibling, that doesn't go away. It never goes away. It evolves, it changes over time. It doesn't always hurt as bad as it does now. You learn ways to cope with it, to learn to live with it. In the book, I talk about how to develop a long term relationship with your grief, but it never
hmm.
goes away. Dr. Lois Tompkin, she has a model called Growing Around Grief. Your
Hmm.
life grows around your grief. And you mentioned that earlier. And it's also called the fried egg model of grief. And
Okay.
talk all about that. It doesn't go away, but you still can create a very meaningful, rich, joyful life. But that doesn't mean the grief will go away. And so I think it's really important to know that. Does that mean you're in pain all of the time? Absolutely not. You can experience joy and laughter. And as a matter of fact, the first time it happens, that can be a really difficult situation. Like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to feel happy again because my loved one's not
Mm,
here? But you can still experience all of that and hold the grief at the same time. They're dialectical feelings where we can hold two things, opposite
yeah.
and opposing feelings at the exact same time. But it does not go away. It gets better, it gets easier. Some people would say it doesn't. It's going to be different for every single
Yeah.
person.
And maybe ups and downs.
Ups and downs, absolutely.
Yeah.
Holidays are often harder, anniversaries, milestones, times when your family member or loved one is supposed to be there. That's difficult.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too I mean, it's a very personal thing. And so, therefore a personal decision to some degree, I think, about how long a person wants to do that. Now, I'm, you can't really force, I don't think that, I mean, maybe you can to a degree, but there's only so much you could push things like that. I think it's better just give people time and allow it to naturally, I guess, unfold.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll just say one thing. I was very, very close to my grandfather, and he died about 26 years ago. And I think this year was the first year I noticed that I did not feel the anniversary of his death in
hmm,
my body. My body would tell me every time we got to July
wow.
9th. I didn't have to look at a calendar. My body would just tell me. It became imprinted. And so it just resided. Didn't mean the rest of the year I was, in very difficult grief, but it resides within us. And I just noticed that, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, July 9th went by and I didn't notice. This
Wow.
was the first time.
I think that happened to me with my grandmother. Like birth, her birthday had, and it like it didn't register. I think that was the first time, or something like. I have similar experience. Yeah, it's So I have my friend who lost his mother to the accident. It's still rather fresh. It's just a couple months now, but it seems like he's almost sabotaging himself in some ways. Like telling work he has COVID. He has a. I don't want to say what he does because I might give him away, but I don't know how to really what to say except. I mean, in some ways, he talks about. I think he's doing it on purpose. Um,
My dogs see a deer.
That's
Sorry about that. There's a
okay.
deer passing by
I
on
did hear
the
that. Well,
island.
um, but is there any like if you see someone who's wallowing, I think there's a difference too in living with the grief and kind of
Working through it.
working through it as compared with wallowing in it to where it starts to become just you become overwhelmed by that. Any suggestions on how to maybe help
Yeah.
someone recognize that and help?
Yeah. You might want to say to him, I've noticed it seems like you're struggling lately with your grief. Can I help you find some resources? Or do you want to talk about it? But just like, hey, I care a lot about you, and I'm noticing that you're struggling.
Yeah. Gosh, so many of the world's problems would be solved if we would just do that
Yeah.
more often and really be able to talk and have an exchange.
Yeah. Just see him and let him know he's being seen. I know you're hurting. I can't fix this, but I'm happy to help you find some support.
Yeah. That's, it's all very good. Thank you so much. I think we're doing good on time. Let's see. I want to make sure I covered everything. And of course, on my notes and everything, I'm going to be putting links. Your team is excellent with the preparation that they made it very easy.
Oh, great.
Um, but I'll include links and things for resources for listeners who are interested, because I really think it's just so very helpful, and it's something that we all go through to one degree or another. Um, this show has really been taking a turn since Tommy died about building resilience towards adversity, because if it's not the death of a loved one, it's maybe job loss,
Yeah.
or I mean, life is difficult,
Yeah.
and how do we deal with that?
I just want
And
to mention real quick that job loss, that's a non-death loss, but we grieve over that as well. And there's, grief from death losses and non-death losses, and sometimes it's combined when we are grieving over multiple things. And
yeah,
just to be able to acknowledge, hey, I'm grieving, and that when we grieve, we are not broken. It's a human emotion, it's a universal experience to grieve, and to be able to have compassion for yourself that something was taken
yeah,
away from me. And I need to give myself the space
mm-hmm.
to feel the feelings and to work through what I'm going through in a healthy manner.
Gosh, that's. Thank you so much. You have really validated a lot of what I've been doing personally. Um, and throughout the years, I mean, it's just been accumulating. I've personally, I guess, come very close to a lot of different traumatic death. I had a friend of mine. She actually gained national attention for this because she was purposely infected with AIDS
Mm.
from her dentist. And this was back in college. And, I've had friends die of drug overdoses. Of course, I was very close with my grandmother, and my dad died, and, my oldest childhood friend died. Um, no matter what you do, you know, death is around us. It's a part of life. And what stuck with me when Tommy was sick was he wasn't scared. He said he wasn't scared of death.
Mhm.
He was scared of not living. He was scared of not, you know, taking every moment that we have is precious.
Mhm.
And we never, like you said earlier, we never know when our end is going to come.
Right.
uh, and just making the most out of life that we possibly can.
Yeah.
I kind of learned that from Phineas, my dog.
Mhm.
Dogs live in the moment.
Mhm.
Um,
Belly
doing
rubs
that,
and treats.
yeah, yeah. I mean, just laying out on the back lawn, on his back, doing his little happy dance. I called it, just rolling in the grass. And just sheer joy of that moment.
Mhm.
I think we need to learn that you know, we need to do that. We need to incorporate that in our life because we never know if we're going to have that next moment.
Yeah.
And it's hard, when you have such great loss in your life
Yeah.
to navigate that. And so I was very thankful to, going through the workbook. Um, I think it's going to be very, really very, very helpful to a lot of people. And you've spent, I don't want to say how long you have because of, but it's been you've been doing this for a very long time. You're expert at this, and I so much appreciate your time and the knowledge that you've shared.
Well,
I
thank you.
think it's going to be really, really helpful to a lot of people who listen to the show.
Well, thank you. If I may, I'd like to share we're starting a course, a companion course to go with the workbook in
Okay.
September. And it's a self-paced online course that I'm narrating, and then I have the opportunity to demonstrate a lot of the tools. There's some guided visualitions, there's breathing techniques, and then there's also sound bites and video clips from other health professionals and individuals living with traumatic grief who share as well. And so I'm just
That
overjoyed to
sounds
have
great.
this additional resource to go with the workbook. So we all learn differently, and it's got a whole another set of brand new exercises as well to accompany it. So, yeah, so
Yeah,
another resource.
um, you have any information on the availability of all of that, or
Yeah,
what? Or
yeah, you can
it's
get
on
it
your
on
site. It's on your
it's on
site,
my
right?
website. Yep, Therapy
Okay.
Heals. Yep, you can sign up
Okay.
for
I
that
will
on.
definitely. That is fantastic. I really wish I would have had that when I was going through all this. I will say this one thing. So, when you're going through a traumatic experience, you're dealing with grief, you're mourning, um, you're searching for answers. And like I said, I felt like my world was crumbling around me and trying to make sense of things. And you're going to take, different avenues. You're going to look in different places of your life. Sometimes you're going to find the issue and it's going to be meaningful. It's going to have value. Other time, the value is that you learned it's not going to be helpful.
Yeah,
It doesn't help you at all. It
yeah,
had nothing to do with the issue.
yeah.
But it's all part of that learning process. And believe me, I learned plenty of things that you know, I just learned how to let go.
Oh, good.
But I think this is going to be so helpful to people, and I know it's helped me. I think we can wrap it up. That was your last thing, right? Or do you have anything else?
No, this is great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having
Dr.
me.
Levin, thank you so much for your time. I hope people valued it as much as I do. So thank you again.
Take care.
Have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Hope you got your ass moving. Until then, until the next time, I'm out of here. Peace.